And welcome to the Striped Onion Show, where we peel them back good. And now to our host, the man with the plan, Sergeant Peel.
All right, it's Christmas time. Let me tell you, we've got a great guest today. This is a good old friend of mine. This is old Patrick Cullinan. Great interview coming up here in just a few minutes. But real quick, like always, I need your help. Share this stuff out. Use your social media platforms. I don't care where you're listening to us at, and share it. Hit that share button. Make sure you subscribe, or you hit the like button, or whatever it is. Help us out. We need to get the word out. That's all this is about. We don't care about anything else other than getting the word out. That's it. Good interview coming up. You're going to love this story. You're going to love this guy. If you don't know Patrick Cullinan, he's a retired canine handler from the Richmond County Sheriff's Office in Augusta, Georgia. One thing I'll tell you, I've known him for a few years. His story impacted me, and I am thankful to have him inside my circle. So without further ado, I want to go right into Pat's story right now. Hey, Pat, Merry Christmas, brother. How you doing?
I'm great. Merry Christmas to you.
I'm not as happy now that I see your face. Where did the Santa beard go, jerk?
Well, here's the deal. The icing on the cake, I love the beard, and I've periodically grown it out real thick and big, but I went out for sushi and had some soy sauce with my sushi, and 2 days later, I'm still tasting soy sauce in my beard, even after bathing, and I'm like, what in the world? No, but in all honesty, I've got some stuff, as you know. I do lobbying in Georgia, and I've got some political events with the upcoming U.S. Senate races coming up that I have to be at. And I figured that I just need to look a little cleaner. That's all it was.
That's fair enough. Well, I'm going to throw your picture up right here. I want people to see what that beautiful beard looked like about a week ago. It was awesome. And it led right into the holidays. So from all of us at the SOS show, and I know Pat's going to jump in here in a minute, we want to tell everybody Merry Christmas. It's only a week away. So everybody have a Merry Christmas and stay on the positive for the holidays. So Pat, what's going on in the world of in the world of the Patrick Cullinan? What's up?
Oh man, we're wide open. With it, like I was just touching on with the U.S. Senate race coming up, and I hate to get into politics, but it's part of my job. And with me working for the Southern States PBA full time, I am a registered lobbyist in Georgia, and everybody knows that all eyes are on Georgia right now. With this Senate race. So that's got me very busy between now and January 5th when the election is. So on top of that, with all the peer support stuff that we've got going on, looking at going out to Texas and helping them next month with a PCIS, another PCIS coming up in Georgia the end of next month. So a lot of stuff happening with peer support right now as well.
Well, that's awesome. I'm going to tell you, the Sarge and Patrick met many years ago, and his story is one of the I like to call it the most rewarding stories. I know it's probably one of the toughest stories or toughest things you've ever had to do, but it's one of the most rewarding stories. And I'm going to get Pat to tell the story here in a minute. But Patrick's been involved with the Georgia peer team, with the Georgia State Patrol peer team, with Richmond County Sheriff's Office in Augusta, Georgia's peer team. With the Office of Public Safety peer support team. I mean, Pat's got his hands in this CISM world very, very deep, both hands, all in. And ever since I've known him in this network, that's how he's been. So I'm proud to have him as a close friend, close confidant. And we work together on a lot of projects, and I love it. So, Patrick, if you don't mind, take a minute. I want you to tell the SOSers out there, how did you get involved? What got you in it? If you want to delve into your story a little bit, I don't mind that one bit, because somebody's going to benefit from it. I promise you.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So I originally, growing up, I knew that I wanted to be in public safety. I specifically wanted to be a cop. My dad was a cop all my life from the day I was born, and I knew that I wanted to follow in his footsteps and serve in that profession. But my dad discouraged me from doing it. He wanted me to do something different. He wanted me to be what he would tell me. He just flat out tell me, he said, "I want you to do better than me, son." Well, I didn't look at it that way. I looked at my dad as, a hero, and looked up to him. And I didn't think that, serving as a deputy sheriff would be bad. I mean, and so, but he discouraged me, and I knew that with my dad being in law enforcement and discouraging me from doing it, that maybe I needed to go a different route. So I went to EMT school and became an EMT with the University Hospital Ambulance Service, and then got on with the Richmond County Fire Department. And so I was doing both. I was doing two full-time jobs for a long time, for several years, working 24 on at the fire station, 24 on at the ambulance service, and then having 24 hours off. And I loved both of those jobs. And of course, that's when I first started really seeing the trauma that we see as first responders. And, we hear people talk about filling up your bucket. And that's when I started filling up my bucket with that stuff in my professional world. But I also got married young and divorced young. When my first marriage, right after I became a first responder, I had a child, and that marriage didn't last long, but about 18 months. And the reason I say that was because that's when I started putting stuff from my personal life into my bucket too. Stuff that I was experiencing, negative things that were really affecting me. And so finally, after 4 years, about 3.5 years going into the fourth year, I went and told my dad. I said, Dad, I like being an EMT. I like being a firefighter, but I really, really want to be a deputy sheriff. I want to be like you. And he said, "I know you do, son." He said, "I've tried to discourage you from doing it. I know how much it means to you. Let's go talk to the sheriff." And so I had my dad's blessing, and that meant a lot to me. And I made the transition over to law enforcement January of 1993, and haven't looked back. I am proud that I've got my roots in fire and EMS, and it was a good experience. But law enforcement is where my heart is. And so I've had a very good career there. But again, going back to that bucket, I have filled that bucket slap full of professional and personal stuff that went on in my career, to the point that 11 years into my career, I just came off the tracks. I started coming off the tracks probably maybe 9 years into my career. I say that's 9 years into my law enforcement career. So tack on my 4 years of EMS and fire before that. But I started coming off the tracks, and I was like, man, this isn't good. I know if I ask anybody for help that it's going to, number one, label me as weak and jeopardize me from losing my job because I can't handle things. So I just tried to pull myself up by the bootstraps and handle things on my own. And I figured I could do it because I've been goal oriented all my life. I've always been able to set goals, achieve goals. And this was one that I kept failing at, specifically with alcohol, because I had gone from being a social drinker that liked to be the life of the party, cutting up, having fun, drinking with friends, to finding myself drinking to numb the pain, to stop the wheels from spinning in my head. And a lot of that was, professionally, but a lot of it was personally too, because by the time I got to this point, I'm now on my second divorce. I have 2 children, and I'm raising my oldest child from my first marriage as a single dad. And I'm happy with myself professionally, but I'm just not happy with myself personally. And so whether it be my personal chaos going on or my professional stuff that's going on that I've experienced, I would drink alcohol to numb the pain. And so I knew there was a problem there. And I thought to myself, you know, you need to cut back on your alcohol drinking. And so I would experiment with it, you know, drinking. You know, we joke about it, you know, I only drink on this time, I only drink after this time. And of course, I found myself working night shift most of the time. And I was drinking early in the morning when I got off and justifying it, you know, this is my evening. And every time I tried to set a goal for not drinking, I always failed miserably. And so moving forward, trying to fight this thing on my own, being afraid to ask for help, I crossed the line one day that I said, you know, I'm sick and tired of the pain. And it had just gotten so bad that, and I had no answers, no way to see any light at the end of the tunnel, that I started thinking about killing myself. And the crazy part about that is, in my career in fire EMS and law enforcement, I'd worked multiple suicides, and I always truly believed that if you find me dead, don't believe it's a suicide, because I would never do that. I thought that people that committed suicide were weak, that they were cowards, they didn't care about their families. I had labeled all these things about suicide, and I truly believed it. And then I became that guy. I was sitting on my couch and I was thinking, this is the way out. You know, had a conversation with somebody yesterday talking about, you know, we hear people say that suicide is a permanent solution for a temporary problem. And I actually don't like that saying, because that's exactly what I was looking for. I wanted a permanent solution. And as far as the temporary problem, when you're in that place, you know, it doesn't seem like a temporary problem. It seems so overwhelming that there's no way that you can get out of it. And I don't fault anybody for saying that. This is just coming as a person that has not only thought about suicide on multiple times, but attempted suicide on a couple times. It seems like it minimizes to the person their problems that they think so big. So that's what I was talking to somebody, another suicide survivor yesterday, and we were just having that discussion about how we know people aren't saying that for the wrong reasons, but I think if you really sit down and think about it, we might be able to find something else better to say to folks, because that doesn't really have that kind of impact that we think it does on them. But so I went back to my bedroom one night. I was at my house alone. My oldest son was at my mother's house. My youngest son was at his mother's house. And I pulled my duty weapon out of my belt and sat there on my couch, looked at it. And my plan that night was to shoot myself in the head and end it. I wanted that permanent solution. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I went ahead and dropped the magazine out, took the round out of the chamber, because I wanted to see if I could do a dry run. I did not think I could muster up the courage to put the barrel of a pistol in my mouth, but I did. I put it in there, and I dry fired my Glock in my mouth just to make sure that I had the courage to do it. And my intentions were to load my magazine, chamber around, and end it that night. Thank goodness I had drank a lot of alcohol that night, and I laid my head back on my couch just to play a videotape in my head of my boys and how much I loved them. And I know that with me saying that I was trying to end my life and check out for my family that night, it probably doesn't sound like I love them, but I can promise you I love my children and loved them then as much as I do now. I didn't know what was going on with me. It was scaring the hell out of me that I was so comfortable with even thinking about this. But I've learned today that what I was having that night was I was having a brain attack. No different than if you and I are talking today. If I were to have a heart attack and I don't go seek treatment for that heart attack, I'm going to die, or more than likely die. And it's the same thing with a brain attack. You know, the heart has a lot of electricity going to it. And we can wrap our heads around that very easily, thinking about the misfires of a heart lead to a heart attack. Well, the misfires of a brain lead to a brain attack, and that's exactly what was happening that night. But I woke up that following morning, thank goodness. I had laid my head back to play that videotape because I passed out when I did, and I woke up that morning and I saw my Glock sitting there on the coffee table, and I knew what I had almost done, and it scared me. And I was still very deeply depressed, but I wasn't as bad. I didn't think about shooting myself when I woke up. I was still looking for a way out, but I didn't pick up that gun again that morning. So here's the crazy part about it. During that time, I had worked my way up. I worked my way up through the ranks to lieutenant, and so I was a lieutenant on the sheriff's department by this time. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just a train wreck, and I know I'm a mess. But I can put on my uniform and go to work, and I didn't lay out. I didn't lay out sick. I was always at work, and I would go to work and make everybody think it was okay. Everything in my life was okay. People thought just because, I was a single dad, I lived on the lake, I had a boat, I had a nice Jeep CJ7, I had this, I had that I had the world in my hands. But I was a good actor. I was miserable, and I did love my job. It wasn't an escape to go to work. It seemed like it was actually vacation to go to work because I could think about helping other people. I could, whether it be my shift or helping the citizens, I could kind of get out of myself. And so that's why I never laid out of work. I always really needed to go to work to get a break from how I was living. And I was working 4 days on, 4 days off. And those 4 days off were really, really, really hard. So I could go on and on about the suicidal thoughts and all the damage I've done. I've neglected my family because of alcohol. I've stolen from my family. I grew up and have always said as a law enforcement officer that I can't stand a liar and a thief. And I had become a liar and a thief. I was lying to people. And of course, the ones that are closest to me is the ones I was lying to. I was stealing money out of my own kids' piggy banks to buy alcohol, stealing their savings bonds to buy alcohol. And I became a liar and a thief. So finally, one day I said, enough's enough. I'm going to break down and I'm going to ask for help. I know it'll cost me my job. I truly believe that 100%, but I called the sheriff and called him drunk at 3:00 in the morning and told him I needed help. And he told me, he said, we'll get you help and we'll be here for you. And I thought he was just saying that because that's what, any good sheriff or chief would tell you. And then they just lower the hammer on you later. But what I found was my sheriff supported me and got me help and stood behind me. Even when I got back, I went off for 33 days to an alcohol and drug treatment center. And it was a civilian alcohol and drug and treatment center. I was the only law enforcement officer in there, which was fine. I mean, they helped me tremendously. They saved my life and helped me tremendously with my alcohol issues, but no fault of their own. They just weren't prepared to help me with any of the trauma that I've dealt with as a first responder for so many years. And so I came back and ultimately ended up 92 days later after coming back from treatment, deciding that I could drink again because I felt like I had got everything, straight. I just thought, everybody's off my back. I feel better about myself. There's no way that I would drink the way I drank before, even though they had told me you can never successfully drink again. Now, keep in mind, they did not tell me that I could never drink again. That's my decision. They told me I could never successfully drink again. And so I had to test the waters, and I did, and it was bad, Sarge. I'm telling you, it got so bad that if you think it was bad before, and you've heard my story so many times, you could tell my story. It got 100 times worse when I picked up again. And so that led to a couple of years of hiding my drinking from folks because I didn't want to let people down, which that's a hard job too, and neglecting my family again, becoming even more suicidal than I ever had before. Leading up to February 2003, I checked into a hotel room here in Augusta. The only reason that I checked into the hotel room was because I didn't like to drink at home anymore, even though I was single and or just my son and I there, because I didn't want, people, friends to come by, coworkers to come by and find me drunk. So I'd send my son off to my mom's or another relative, and I'd go binge drink in the hotel. And so that was my plan that night. And I went over to the hotel during the day to start drinking, and late into the night, early morning, I was so depressed that I decided to kill myself. And I discovered that I had not brought a gun with me because I didn't go to the hotel to kill myself. I went to the hotel just to binge drink. And so I looked down at my belt on my pants, and I was wearing just a pair of jeans with a big, thick leather belt. And I thought to myself, I can do it with this because I've seen people hang themselves with belts. I've worked those calls. And so I rigged the belt up above the door in the bathroom. I tested it with all my body weight to make sure that it would not come loose. And I got the chair from the computer desk, put it around my neck, the belt around my neck, kicked the chair out from under me without playing any videotape or anything. I just didn't sit and think of anything. I kicked the chair out, and it was lights out instantly. I don't remember gasping for air. I don't remember anything except waking up on the floor and the belt had broke loose from the door. And I stood up, looked in the mirror, and I thought to myself, I was angry. I was angry at myself. I was angry that I had failed. I was angry at God that I couldn't leave this miserable world. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Here I am in this hotel, and I can't even kill myself. And now I know I can't tell anybody about this. And so I just kept on in my misery up until July. And finally, in July, my mom had given me she knew I'd gone back to drinking. And she told me one day, she said, you can either go back and get help and get serious about getting sober, or I'm going to take your son away from you. And, you know my oldest son, and he's my ride or die. And so is my youngest one. But Chase was, he was there with me all the time. And so for me to say that I was going to choose alcohol over my own child, it just still baffles me. And it goes to show me that if I could say that, that goes to show you how powerful alcohol is. Because that day on the phone, I told my mom that I can't quit drinking. And I truly believe that he would be better off without me and living with her. And so I let her come get him. And, I found out later that when she pulled off with him, the first thing that he asked my mom was, I know I'm going to stay with you for a little while, Mimi, but if I go with you, who's going to take care of my dad? And that came from a 12-year-old, because that's what it had come to. He was taking care of me. He was raising me. So I went and I continued to drink hard for a couple more days. And then on July 22nd, 2003, I woke up and I said, enough's enough. I said, I'm so sick of this. And it's crazy because usually when I woke up and felt like that, I was suicidal. I wasn't suicidal this morning. I thought to myself, you're a liar. You lie to yourself. You lie to everybody that helps you or that's trying to help you. why don't you try to get honest for one time in your life about what's going on in your head and your heart and see if you can't truly get some help. And so I made a commitment that morning on July 22nd, 2003. This was my commitment. I'm going to be honest with Patrick. I'm going to be honest with the men and women, whether it be therapists, drug and alcohol counselors, clergy, co-workers, family, no matter who it is, I'm going to be honest with them about what's going on with me and the fact that I need help, and I'm going to be willing to take their help. And my commitment was that if I could do that for 1 year and not drink for 1 year and be happy, then that would be fantastic. If I did it for 1 year and I was miserable without alcohol, then I would go back to drinking and I would just let the cards fall however. And what I found was when I did that, things really started changing for the better in my life. And I went from a guy who believed in God. I still believe, even at my worst, I believed in God, but I just didn't feel like I had a relationship with him. I didn't feel like God had turned his back on me. I felt like I'd turned my back on God, and who was I to ask God for help now after turning my back on him for so long? Had a guy that, let me back up. So I went off. I was suggested that I go to a long-term treatment center for 6 months. And normally I would say, no, I can't do that. You don't understand. I got a career. I got a child to raise. I got this. If somebody suggested for me to do anything, if they would have suggested that, and I knew they were serious, that I had to hike the Appalachian Trail barefooted to stay sober, Sarge, I would have hiked the Appalachian Trail barefooted to stay sober. So when they told me that I needed to go to a 6-month long-term treatment center, I said, okay. And so I was willing to go to any length for my sobriety. And I went off there. My mom kept my oldest son. My youngest son was his mom. Now, my current wife, Sandra, we were dating at the time. And so I begged her to, drop me like a hot potato and run as fast as she could. But
she had a chance to get away and she didn't.
She did. She had a chance to get away. That was a perfect chance to get away when I went off, for 6 months, and she didn't. She stayed, and the games. Chase was playing football. As a matter of fact, there was so many times that I was supposed to be at games and I wouldn't show up for either one of my son's games because I was drinking, and I'd justify it that, they got 10 more games, I'll be at the next one. And but Sandra was very busy in her career at the time, and she made sure that she was at all of Chase's games. She really was a huge support system for me. And so I went up there, and I know what I was going to. So I was talking about my relationship with God. So I get up there, and it was the Hickey House in Helen, Georgia. And there was a guy by the name of Linwood. God rest his soul. I just found out last week that Linwood died. But Linwood asked me one day when I first got there, he said, "Patrick, do you believe in God?" And I said, yeah, Linwood, I do believe in God, but I just don't feel like I have the right to have a relationship with him. And he said, okay. He said, so you don't pray? And I said, no, I don't pray. And he said, would you be willing to pray to my God? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, check this out. He said, so I've done the same thing. I turned my back on my God, and I went back asking him for help, and he was good with it. He's helped get me sober. He said, so I know he'll be good with everything you've done too. So, whoever your God is or whatever, that's fine. Just put that on the back burner. And if you're willing, pray to my God. Well, I told you I was willing to do anything. And so even though I wasn't comfortable praying to the God that I grew up in a relationship with, I was willing to pray to Linwood's God. And so I literally would say, Linwood's God, help me stay sober today. And that's all I'd say. And then if I made it back to my bed that evening, which I did, and I made it back sober, all I would say is, Linwood's God, thank you for keeping me sober today. And I said that for a long time. I mean, for weeks. And till one day, I just said, God. And I told Linwood out on the porch at the Hickey house, I said, Linwood, I said, I've discovered something. He said, what's that? I said, I think we have the same God. And that was a big deal for me. So I tell people that Linwood and other alcoholics and drug addicts brought me back to my relationship with God. And since that day, I have not turned my back on God since. Now, do I sometimes forget to pray? Absolutely. I don't feel good when I do that, but I'm a firm believer, because I was taught that there's 3 things I've got to do to maintain long-term sobriety, and that's trust God, clean house, which, means keep my side of the street clean, keep my house clean. If I throw some skeletons in my closet, I've got to clean those out, and help others. Trust God, clean house, and help others. And I do those 3 things every day. So going back to, me thinking about losing my career and being labeled as weak, everything that I thought was going to happen to me in my career, if I asked for help and told them that I was broken and off the tracks, none of it happened. I'm not going to say nobody ever said behind my back that I was weak or a coward or anything like that. It was never said to me. I've never heard anybody say it. I've never had anybody say that somebody said it. And most importantly, all of my leaders have always supported me, and my coworkers have always supported me that I worked around. So it has been a huge blessing. Of course, my family has supported me and been, my biggest support system. And so that, when you start talking about trust God, clean house, help others, I knew and I truly believed that if I wanted to keep what I have, I'd have to pay it forward. So peer support during this time, when we're talking about 2003, when I got sober, nobody was talking about peer support, not in this area. And I didn't know anything about that, but I had started to become willing after around 2006, maybe. They asked me if I would talk to the police academy about my drinking and my recovery. And so around 2006 or 2007, I started doing that and sharing my story over there, sharing everything that I shared with you today, with the exception of the suicide part. I still was not comfortable talking about the suicide part to my peers. And so it wasn't until, I don't know, around maybe 2010, 11, one day I was on the way to the police academy, and I was going to give my talk about my recovery with alcohol. And I thought, suicide is such a big part of your story that somebody in that room might need to hear that, Patrick, and you need to just put it out there as part of your story. And so I did it that day, and it was really tough to do, but I did it, and it did make me feel better. And I have since, started adding that part to my story and laying all the cards on the table. But in 2013, something happened really cool to me, and that was I was approached by Andy Carrier with the Georgia State Patrol and David James with the Richmond County Sheriff's Office, and told that they were having a seminar in Augusta called the Post-Critical Incident Seminar. And I said, well, what is that? What is that? So we want you to come to it, because they knew that I had been involved in a fatal shooting, and that I had been on the scene of a line of duty death, and some other, stuff, plus the cumulative stuff. They said, we think you get a lot out of it just because of the trauma that you've experienced over your career. So I said, okay, that sounds good. And so I showed up not knowing what to expect. And I thought I was pretty good. You got to think, I've been sober 10 years at this point and really worked hard on my recovery. So I thought I was on pretty solid ground. And I was with my drinking part. But as far as some of the trauma that I've experienced, I had stuffed that stuff down. And the PCIS took me to another level that it just amazed me. It blew me away. And I said, how can I get involved in helping with stuff like this? And that's when I started finding out more about peer support. And right at that same time, David James said that they were going to create a peer support team in Richmond County. He wanted me to be a part of it. And I said, well, what do I have to do? So then the next thing I know moving forward, I find out that I can get classes through Support One. And I have gotten 100% of my training for peer support through Support One, and I'm very proud of that. And Support One's very near and dear to my heart because of the work that all the men and women with that organization do. And not only has trained me to be a peer, but has trained most every man and woman that I know that serves beside me as a peer. So that started to take me to another level of being able to help others, which led to me, after being trained by Support One, to help with other PCISs around the country. And now I'm helping with Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, and New York. So it's just been an amazing, amazing journey. Somebody asked me last week, they said, Patrick, do you have fun sober? And I said, if I didn't have fun sober, I'd go back to drinking. If I'm going to be miserable without alcohol, I'd rather be miserable with alcohol. So I absolutely have fun. I have been able to make amends to all the people I lied and cheated to. I have been able to do things that I never, ever thought that I would experience. And I have taken my career to places that I never, ever could have if I would have continued drinking. So peer support is near and dear to my heart. And I will not, as long as I'm drawing a sober breath, I will not quit doing it. It's what the driving force for me, and it's my favorite part about my career. Luckily, with the PBA, I mentioned that I'm a lobbyist on the political side, but that's just only one portion of the work that I do for our organization. One of the other things that they hire me to do is to help our brothers and sisters that are struggling, whether, it be something in their personal life, professional life, get them on track, guide them to the right direction of where they can get help. And so I get paid to do this full time as far as helping others now. And I would have never, ever imagined that in a million years. So that's, I guess that's a snapshot of, what happened and where I am today. And I am proud to say that, Sandra, not only did she not leave me, she ended up marrying me. She told me she wouldn't marry me till I was a year sober, though. So,
well, the funny part there is, so she had an out. She hung around, and then you asked her to marry you, and she actually said yes. So
I know that's
nuts. Now, that's a joke. I mean, we have a good time with that, but back in episode 4, I interviewed a guy named, and I like saying that, interviewed a guy. His name is Guy Van Horn. Guy down in Charleston.
Yep.
Same thing there. His wife, as soon as you talked about Sandra in this aspect, and I've known Sandra for a few years as well, but Guy, same thing there. And his wife stuck with him and successful to this day. They're still married. They're still doing a great job, and they're doing a lot of good work, not only in Charleston, but also with the Billy Graham Institute. So, proud of the fact that she stood beside you, and I hope she's in the background, or I hope she sees this later and says, hey, appreciate it, because Sandra, I'm telling you, we appreciate you sticking through this with Pat, because the circles are what matter. We say that all the time. If we talk to one person, if we talk to a group, we've done this before. You've said it in your speeches. Same thing. The circles do matter. So I agree with you 100%. And speaking of the PCIS, the PCIS didn't just change the way for you. It changed the way for me as well. My involvement started in 2008. So changed my professional life, changed my personal life, changed my relationships. So hats off to Eric Skidmore for stealing the crap out of that thing. The only preacher that stole stuff, he stole the crap out of that from the FBI. And I'm thankful to this day. And there's probably hundreds, if not thousands of people who are appreciative just of PCIS, not of anything else he does, just of PCIS. There's got to be hundreds, if not thousands, that are appreciative of that, because it is spread across, what are we up to, 11 states now they're doing it?
Yeah, I think so, 11 or 12, yeah.
11 or 12, yeah. So I want to jump over real quick. Let's talk about Valor Station.
Okay.
A few episodes ago, I had Cliff. It was around episode 5. I had Cliff Richards from the Hale Foundation on the show, and he laid some of the groundwork and told us about Valor Station. So it's time to give us an update. I know that we got some legal battles going, and it's still very much a real thing, and you got a lot of support. We got a lot of not just political support, but community support, first responder support. Tell us about Valor Station. How about real quick, take a quick 2 minutes and tell us why Valor Station? Why did you come up with this? Because you are the brainchild behind it, you and Andy Carrier.
Yes, I appreciate that. So when I touched on, my personal experience with getting sober, I told you about going to the Civilian Treatment Center, and I was the only law enforcement officer there. And they were able to help me with my drinking, but were unable to address the stuff with my trauma. That's what we have found around the country is, men and women first responders can get sober. That's not a problem. There's just a lot of places that aren't equipped to deal with the PTSD, other things that we experience, some other co-occurring issues. And so there's been some private treatment centers around the country that have started first responder tracks there, and they might have a handful of first responders there, and they'll have a specific meeting for them during the week or day. But there's not any first responder only treatment centers, a place that only men and women that are police, fire, EMS, and dispatch can go to. And as well as I do, that's the key of why PCIS works. And so I've always said that it would be amazing if we had a place like that. And I met Cliff when I was first getting sober. He was a man in long-term recovery that I looked up to and I clung on to try to absorb anything that he had. I wanted to be like him in recovery. And I knew that he had taken over the Hale Foundation probably about 13 years ago, and I'd still see him out and about around town periodically. And I saw on the news that the Hale Foundation had been gifted the former convent in South Augusta, and that they had failed to get the zoning because the neighborhood was strongly against alcohol and drug treatment center coming near their neighborhood. And the news said that their neighborhood's two main concerns were the fact that they didn't know who would be coming, if it was people coming out of prison, who it was coming near their neighborhood, and number two, that the entrance to the facility, you have to go through the neighborhood, and they didn't want to increase traffic. And I thought to myself, wow, I know how to address both of those issues. Let the neighborhood know who is coming, first responders, men and women that are actively working or retired, and with it being such a big piece of property, just take and put another entrance on the other side where it butts up to Augusta Technical College and close off the entrance through the neighborhood. And so I called Cliff and I said, what do you think about this idea? And that's when he said, man, I love the idea, but I've got to pitch it to the board. Would you and Andy Carrier be willing to come do a presentation? And so we did, and the board, the Hale Foundation board, absolutely loved it. They jumped in head first and have stayed that way throughout this whole time. And as you know, many of your listeners know that the neighborhood dug their feet in. They said that the Hale Foundation was lying to the public, that they were just trying to prey on first responders to try to shove it down the commission's throat. And that's the furthest from the truth. The Hale Foundation had no idea about this need until Andy and I took it to them. And so I applaud the Hale Foundation for supporting us and staying in this fight for us. We're still in the fight, even though they denied the zoning. We've got two. I say we because I'm, helping them as much as I can. But the Hale Foundation has two lawsuits, one in state court, Superior Court, for an appeal to overturn what the county commission did by wrongfully denying the zoning. And secondly, a lawsuit in federal court for discrimination and a violation of the Fair Housing Act. For the folks that don't know, addiction, alcoholism, and drug addiction is a protected class. Once the person decides to quit using or drinking, then they fall into that protected class because it is a disease, and people like myself that are in long-term recovery, we are protected under the American Disabilities Act, no different than a cancer patient. So, they would not dare say, oh, we don't want cancer patients near us. But they don't mind saying they don't want, a person like me in recovery near them. And I'm the same first responder that would respond to them if I was, still actively drinking. So, I've always said we're good enough to come to you when you need help, but we're not good enough to come near you when we need help. And that's been my thought process through this whole thing. But we feel strongly that we are going to prevail with this, and that in 2021, you're going to see the doors of Valor Station open.
I'm excited. I can't wait. We've got a lot of people, not just on both sides of the river, because we're talking about South Carolina and Georgia, that are pushing it, that are contributing, that are helping, whether it's physically or monetarily. But we're starting to see questions come from all over the nation, like, hey, are y'all open yet? And that's so cool. I, as well as I do, it is beyond needed. So, I applaud y'all. I applaud the Hale Foundation, especially Cliff and his team are fabulous in what they have done so far, because they've had to do some things to the facility just to even start preparing it to get it to pass in any kind of inspection. So not that it was run down or nothing. It's a beautiful piece of property. I'm going to drop a picture real quick right here so y'all can see what just some of it looks like. But there's a lot of work that's got to go into this to make it ready to actually be, and I like to call it, to be a facility for first responders, period. Whether they're coming there for addiction, whether they're coming there for mental health, whatever, it's going to be a beautiful place. So again, thank you for that. I wanted people to hear there is an update to it. And as we get closer to the day of opening the doors, I hope that show comes on the air with you and Cliff sitting side by side saying, we're ready, with a thumbs up. And I want to throw that show out whenever it does happen. It's going to be 2021. I feel strong about it. I'm grounded in my faith with the Lord. So prayers big or small don't matter. You can throw a small prayer and it's just as strong as a big prayer. We need the prayers, not just for our first responders, but for this facility. So one thing I like to do in these shows, Pat, and I'm going to get you to do it, is I like to close on a strong note. Do you got anything, whether it be a favorite Bible verse or a story or something like that, something positive to end this note on?
Gosh, I got so much positive, and of course you put me on the spot there, and I think to myself, I want to make sure that, something that's really, really positive. The first thing that comes to my head, and I've got a lot of quotes and Bible verses, but some real world stuff, because you heard in my story, you heard how I had said that I was just absolutely terrified of asking for help. But even after I asked for help and I started publicly sharing my experience with folks, that I kept that suicide part out because I was just scared. I wasn't scared of losing my job for saying it. I was scared of being labeled as weak. And even in recovery, I was just scared to talk about that. And so I was so glad that I did, because we're talking about PCIS, and I was out at PCIS and I shared my full story and about the fact about being suicidal. And one of the officers in Texas pulled after my talk, pulled a bullet out of his pocket and said that he no longer needed this bullet. He had been carrying it around, not knowing what day he was going to put it in his head. And he said that he felt that he could ask for help too. And he gave that bullet, he gave that bullet away and gave it to one of the peers and said, because of Patrick sharing his story, I don't think I need this. And, that is when we talk about, we hope we can just help one person. That was like my one person moment. I believe that I've helped other people, but when sometimes, we always say, if we can just help one person, and I did with that guy. And so I knew he had asked for help. I've often thought about him. Fast forward last year, September 2019, I got off the plane in McAllen, Texas, which is down at the Mexico border, to do a PCIS down there. And lo and behold, that guy was there. And over the past 3 years that I had not seen him, not only did he get help, he has gone through all his peer training, and he's a full-blown Texas peer now, and he's paying it forward. So it's stories like that just keep me driving.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, that's the whole concept of this show. Just so you know, I don't care anything about what this brings monetarily, because it ain't making no money. There's no you got to have millions of subscribers and all the platforms, blah blah blah.
Right.
If it helps one person,
yep,
then job well done. And we've already seen that. This is the 8th show. Just so you know, we only have been able to get 8 shows in since we launched a couple months ago. But in these 8 shows, we've gotten contacts to us who have requested to talk to their speakers and stuff like that. We've linked them up, or we've hooked them up with some help, and it's been phenomenal how that's flowed. And your story, I'm telling you, on this platform, I hope it reaches one person. I hope it reaches a lot, honestly, but if it reaches one person, then our job was done today. So, Fat, I appreciate you. I appreciate you being on the show. One thing I do want to say is tell your lovely wife, Sandra, hello, and I love her, and I appreciate her for standing beside you.
Sounds great. I most certainly will, and I appreciate you. I appreciate all you've done for me and my family, and for all of our brothers and sisters. I'm grateful that you're a close friend.
Outstanding. Everybody, have a Merry Christmas from all of us here at the SOS Show, and from Patrick and his family, we want to tell y'all Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks again for listening, friends. Let me tell you, we are greatly appreciative of your support of the SOS Show, the Striped Onion Show, and we are just as grateful for the friends we have inside our CISM network. Don't forget to share today's SOS call on your social media platforms. That is critical to getting the word out. And also make sure to leave some comments on whichever platform you listen to us on. We will respond to you. Visit our website at some point, thesosshow.com, and check it out. See what we have there. Sign up for the email notifications about shows and events we have coming up in the future. This is all about the first responders, about their support circles. So we want to make sure that it is impactful. And until next time, we hope everyone has a great day and a great week. Y'all stay safe out there, and God bless.